Welcome to a World Cup preview of Group A, which consists of Brazil, Croatia, Mexico and Cameroon. So let's go through all the every single team in this group, starting with the host nation, Brazil.
Brazil, 5 times champions, hosts, and in Brazil, if you don't win the World Cup, you're a failure. So that's the philosophy of...
So all the pressure is on Brazil.
As it always is.
Especially now that they're actually playing at home.
At home, yeah.
Only team to participate in every single World Cup. However, since the last victory in 2002, they've been bungled out in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
So this is the goal. This is the chance. I mean, they're at home, and they're gonna have a home ground support.
Yep.
And everyone expects them to lift in the cup in America now on July 13th.
Yep.
So can they handle the pressure?
Well, you know, it's a tough question, but certainly the dress rehearsal at the Confederation Cup, if that's anything to go by, it shows that not only did they prove their doubters wrong, they proved them wrong emphatically, including myself. I'd just like to say that this is one of the worst Brazilian teams on paper I've seen in my time watching World Cups. But that does not mean that it was a bad team. It was just they've proved me wrong. I mean, obviously, you know, growing up seeing the Ronaldos, the Rivaldos, Roberto Carlos, and this and that.
Yeah.
This time, yeah, it's not as star-studded, but they're still getting the job done.
Yep.
So the only competitive fixtures they have were at that tournament, and they did brilliantly. So what else can you say? You know, at this stage.
Yep. And you got a coach who has done this before. He did it in 2002.
Won the World Cup with them, yeah.
Back in 2002, actually barely qualified for the World Cup, I remember, but they won it in style.
Yeah.
And he's back again, and looks like they got the same confidence back again as well.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about particularly the players. Now, obviously, you said that they're not as good as the vintage Brazilian teams of the past.
On paper.
On paper, at least. However, they're still a decent team.
Yeah.
Who are the key players that will give Brazil the best chance to win this World Cup?
Oscar and Neymar.
Yeah.
Certainly, one's pulling the strings and one's just brilliant striker, and one's really just roaming behind the strikers, really trying to feed them through. So what Scolari's done, he's sort of when he came in, previous coach was sacked. He's brought out the best in all these other players, and he's brought in a holding role for like Fernandinho and Paulinho.
Yeah.
And he's told Oscar to do, just run free, and he's been able to do that. And Neymar's been able to be spectacular as he is.
Yeah.
And some of these strikers that you thought were past it, like Joe, Fred, even Hulk, who's made some bad career decisions, he's been able to perform to the extent that you need to perform in the Brazilian, exceed expectations. Let's just say that. Neymar's still the man, but these other backup strikers have done well.
And the other thing as well, which I think another thing which I think will be a big advantage for Brazil is the defense. The defense is very experienced. Talking about players around the 30s, players such as Dani Alves, Thiago Silva, Dante, Maicon. Those guys are extremely experienced at the top level. And as I say, defense wins you titles. And if someone has a strong defense, a very stingy defense, you're going to really increase your chance of winning the tournament. And Brazil's got that. It'll just be up to their attackers to actually do the job, scoring goals.
Definitely.
So that's pretty much covers Brazil, isn't it?
Definitely. It's as I say with every Brazilian team, don't ever write them off, because when you do, they do crazy stuff like they did last year. They win the Confederation Cup, they win the World Cup 2002. And then the funny thing is, when you do expect things from them, they get knocked out in the quarterfinals. I don't know, that's what I found. But I don't know. I don't know what the expectation is like this time.
It's massive. It's huge. Anyway, let's move on to the next team. Croatia. Now, Croatia are at the 4th World Cup since it became an independent country back in 1993. Yeah. Their best performance was a 3rd place finish in 1998, but their next 2 World Cups they were bungled out in the group stage.
And it's just struggled for consistency. Like 2006, I mean, They couldn't even get past Australia. 2010, sorry, you have to remind me.
No, they didn't even qualify.
They didn't qualify, so there you go. And then 2002, sorry, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, they're good enough to, beat Italy, I think it was. They beat Italy in the semi group,
Yes.
and they still couldn't get out of the group. So these things, must be frustrating for Croatian supporters.
It can. And this time they barely qualified as well. They had to beat Iceland.
Yeah. Belgium just ran rampant in that group. They didn't really have a chance of topping it.
Yep.
But,
there you go. And in terms of the team itself, obviously you can't compare this to the 1998 team, which was a golden generation team for Croatia.
Yep.
Obviously that's impossible to top. But in terms of key players, it would have to be obviously Luka Modric, who is the playmaker, who strings in the middle of the field.
Yep.
He's obviously the most talented player, and he has to be on fire for Croatia to have any chance of getting out of this group.
Sure, yeah, definitely. And Mario Mandzukic as well, the Bayern Munich striker, as we know. And one other player that you really should look out for is a young Inter Milan starlet. A lot of people talking about him as being one for the future. And I think he's in the squad this time. He's Mateo Kovacevic.
Yep.
Kovacevic. So certainly he's another one in the midfield that they're really looking to unleash at this World Cup.
One thing I do have to point out is that Mandzukic is actually suspended for the first game of the World Cup, so opening game against Brazil.
Yep.
So that will obviously drastically reduce the chance of beating Brazil, which many don't expect anyway.
Yeah.
But you have to hope that he's still in form for the next two games and can get the results for Croatia to go through.
Definitely.
Alright, so that's Croatia in a nutshell. Moving on to the third team in this group, Mexico. Now, Mexico has an envious record of being the team with most appearances in the World Cup without actually winning the tournament.
I like to call them group stage specialists. I think they have the most losses of any team
in the World Cup.
In the World Cup.
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere too.
Yeah.
15th.
Which means it's a consequence of them qualifying for many World Cups, of course.
But they're not doing anything much. So 15th World Cup, but they've only made the quarterfinals twice, and that's when they hosted the World Cup.
Yeah, twice.
This time they barely qualified. They were actually on the verge of actually missing the playoffs from CONCACAF until the US team actually scored a couple of late goals.
The US did them a favour, can you believe that?
Massive favour. And then they had to face New Zealand to qualify, which they actually beat convincingly. So they've barely qualified. They got largely home-based squads, and a lot of the players either not in form or they just passed the prime.
Yeah, and still relying on this. I'm still seeing the same names on this team sheet. No wonder they struggled in qualifying. Dos Santos. I'm seeing Rafael Marquez. I thought I'd never see that name again. It's still there. 35 or 36 years old.
Yeah.
Javier Hernandez. Yeah, we know he's great, but he's not getting any game time for Manchester United. I don't even remember him playing any. When you compare him to someone like Edin Dzeko, who's actually coming on as a sub and getting some minutes, I just unfortunately for Hernandez, he just hasn't been getting that game time. So okay, they smashed New Zealand 9-3, but it's New Zealand, so I don't really know what that really means. But that's how they got to the World Cup.
I think, given the manner in which they qualified, most people are probably not giving them much of a chance of doing anything in this World Cup.
Yeah.
But you never know, Mexico. They don't have a bad team. It's just that home-based squad-based, taken from Mexican clubs. That means it's not up there at the top level.
Sure.
And that could prove to be their downfall.
Sure.
But you never know. Crazy things have happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy things happen in the World Cup. Alright, so let's move on to the final team in this group, which is Cameroon, who have the record of being the African team with the highest number of appearances in the World Cup. This is their 7th World Cup.
Yep, and they always seem to be there. Unfortunately, their best memory is 1990, the Roger Milla memories, quarterfinals, but Fortunately, since then it hasn't been the great a great story. I don't think they've even got out of the groups.
No, they haven't.
No, there you go.
Ever since that 1992.
Yeah, so it's just it's unfortunate, and they're really and it's not looking good for them here either. It's not an easy group. So
and the team is not as good as a previous vintage, and once again we're seeing the same names pop up over and over again. Samuel Eto'o is still the main guy.
Yeah.
But he's 33 now.
Exactly, and you know we saw all the things Mourinho said about him, and while Mourinho does talk the talk a bit too much, he was right in the sense that the guy's getting old, and he's certainly not the Barcelona Samuel Eto'o. That's just that's it.
So, and apart from Samuel Eto'o, who I think is past his prime anyway, apart from him, there are two players which could potentially carry the fortunes of Cameroon, Alex Song and Stefan Mibia. In the midfield, those two guys.
Yeah. But even Alex Song, I mean, as great a talent as he is, especially from his Arsenal days, he's not getting that game time, so I'm not really sure what he can produce these days. So so still relying on those past glories. Everyone thought gold medal of 2000 Olympics would bring about some sort of a golden generation, but it hasn't really happened. So.
Well, that's Cameroon in a nutshell. Alright, so to end this, let's make our predictions. Who will progress from Group A?
Brazil and Croatia.
I have to agree. Brazil and Croatia will progress from Group A.
I just don't. Mexico, let's be honest, New Zealand, if it was someone else, they probably shouldn't even be here. That's what I think. Croatia, you could make the same argument if it was someone other than Iceland, maybe. But I think when you compare the two, Croatia's still
stronger team.
Stronger.
I have to agree. Okay. Well, that's Group A.
That's Group A. Cheers.
Alright, we've done all the groups.
Okay.
So let's just one more video. Give me what are those categories again? Gotta give me the categories.
Bye.